Hey now, Rob here from Buhler Bro of Flies, back again for the Kern River Fly Shop. Today we're going to be taking a look at one of the earliest flies mentioned in literature, the soft hackle fly. This goes back to about 200 AD in Roman literature, and then in 1496 Dame Juliana Berners mentions it in her treatise on flies, that it's one of the hottest flies in England at the time. So we're going to take a look at some of the modern materials used to tie this fly and do a couple tutorials over the next couple reports. Here's a couple feathers that are used commonly. These are chicken feathers. The one on the right's an Indian hen back, and the one on the left is a Brahma hen from Whiting Farms. Both have really nice modeling. The Brahma hen on the left comes in larger sizes and doesn't come down in small sizes for small flies, so that's an excellent large fly purpose feather. And for our smaller flies, I like to use starling skin or a starling feather. We got a little starling shoulder here. You can see the real nice iridescence on these feathers, and then they come in smaller sizes on the shoulder here for your smaller flies. And the most commonly used feather in fly tying today for the soft hackles is the partridge. That's what we're going to use today. And this comes in medium sizes for your medium sized flies, and then has real nice modeling on there too, and is nice and soft for good movement in the water. We'll take a look at the hook we're going to use today and drop in that size 14 nymph hook. And we're using a hook from the fly shop again. It's a size 14, like I mentioned, and equivalent to TMCO's 3761s. So 1x long nymph hook. And the thread we're going to use is UTC thread, one of our favorites, in the olive color, 70 denier. Just about any thread will work, but this lays real flat on the hook shank and has a nice sheen to it as well. So we'll start at about the 80% mark here and take several wraps to secure the thread in place. Trim our excess. And we can do just a thread body, or we can add a little bit of wire for durability and segmentation, which we're going to do today. We're going to use UTC wire, and small in the amber color. And we'll attach that right where we attached our thread, up at about that 75-80% mark. And put the wire on our side of the hook shank as we wrap the thread around to secure that into place, and start taking wraps toward the back of the hook shank. One of the things we like about this UTC thread is if you twist it counterclockwise, it lays nice and flat. So take several twists counterclockwise and you can kind of see how that's flattening out there. And then we'll continue wrapping toward the back. I may have gone just a little bit too far. There we go. It's nice and flat there. And we'll wrap toward the back. And that'll create a nice smooth body and keep the bulk down on the fly as well. So once we get to just about the bend, we'll start our wraps, our thread wraps back up toward the front. And if the thread starts to coil up again, a couple more spins counterclockwise, we'll flatten it out. You can see how nice and flat that is there. And keeping our nice smooth body. And get up to about the 75-80% mark. Maybe 80% mark, and we'll leave that thread hanging in place and then wrap our wire around the body. Taking evenly spaced wraps through the body, maybe 5 or 6 of those as we come up toward our thorax. There's 6 wraps, and then we'll take one more to secure in place. Wrap our thread up over that wire, another wrap over the wire, We can keep tension on the thread while we spin our wire, and that'll pop the wire off. We don't have to use our scissors. And we can continue on right here and wrap in our dubbing or our collar, but I'm going to add a little security to this fly. And you can use a UV epoxy if you like. We're going to add a little super glue. I've been using the Loctite super glue lately. And take a toothpick or your bodkin and put just a drop of that super glue on the tip of the toothpick there, and swab that up and down the body, and that'll soak into that thread. We'll get a little bit more here. And that's going to soak into that thread. Oh, that's perfect. And add a little sheen as well, creating durability, and then a nice little sheen on that fly. So we can let that dry up. If you have the UV, go ahead and zap it with your UV light and lock that in place. And then we're going to jump right into our dubbing and create a little dubbing bump right behind where we're going to add our feather in, which is going to help support that feather from collapsing too much when we're fishing this fly. And the dubbing, you can use just about any dubbing you want. I'm going to use ice dub today. Pull out my fancy ice dub box here I have from the craft store. And we're going to pick some light olive UV dub to match with our olive body. And just add just a touch of this dubbing. Don't need a whole lot on this fly. And we can spin just a small amount between your thumb and index finger, always going in the same direction to spin that tightly onto the thread. And then we'll wrap that up and over, leaving some space at the front of the fly up here for our feather to wrap in. Just a small amount of dubbing in place. Hold that feather up just right here. And again, leave a small space up front here for our feather. And the last thing we need to add, as we take that last wrap, make sure to take the last wrap after your dubbing in front of the dubbing. And so we're going to pull up our feather here. And there's several ways to wrap in these soft hackles. I'm going to show you the way I like to do it. We're going to grab the tip with a small pair of hackle pliers. So pull out your hackle pliers and go ahead and grab that right at the tip of that feather. And then we're going to sweep back almost all those materials. So we just have the tip exposed there. And then trim off almost all of that tip. Just leave a small amount of the tip of that feather for tying in. And we're going to kind of just move that right into place there at the head of the fly. And take a wrap to secure that stem into place. And come back toward the back of the hook shank. To take a couple securing wraps. Now we have 3 securing wraps in there. And we can come forward with 2 wraps toward the eye. And leave our thread hanging. Now we're going to wrap our feather. And we only need maybe 2 wraps of this feather to make a nice soft hackle. And these soft hackles, you don't want to overdo it. Too many of these fibers will bulk it up and they won't swim as nicely. So we want them all facing toward the back as we go. This is the tough part. A little bit of tension, and we orient all those feathers toward the back as we wrap it around. Come up underneath. There's one full wrap. That'll make a nice soft tackle there, but we're going to do two. Come around one more time, taking the next wrap right in front of the last. And there's two wraps. All those fibers are oriented toward the back. You can see I'm sweeping them back as I go here. And then bring that thread up and over to secure the stem into place. One more wrap up and over, securing it again. And we can trim our excess at the top there. Get in there and trim that stem as close as you can. Boom, nice, perfect. Now we have this one stray fiber out here, kind of funky. Not a problem, just sweep that on back. Thread wrap up over everything to secure in place. And then we'll start taking thread wraps toward the back. And we've got a nice little thread head here created. And we'll do several half hitches to finish off. You can do whip finishes if you like. There's two half hitches, one more. Give a little tug to secure everything in place. Trim our excess. And then we can go right back to that epoxy or our super glue to finish everything off here. And take just another little drop of that glue. And come up around the head here. Be careful not to get any on the wing, or not to get too much on the wing. You can get a little on the base. Just be careful not to get it into the wing. I may have gotten some up in the eye there of the hook. I'll show you a little trick to help get that out. Let's see. So we're going to take that feather we just used. We've got a little bit of super glue in the eye. We're going to take the feather we just used and insert the stem right up through the eye. The excess feathers are going to gather up that glue, and then we've got a nice clean eye now and a nice glue coating on our thread head. Not too much glue on the feather, and we've got a nice clean soft tackle here. So this is going to fish excellent during mayfly and caddis hatches, but fishes well all the time. Fishes on nymph rig, you can fish it dry dropper. Just a great all-around fly, all-purpose fly. Is fished great for 500 years really, and you can do all kinds of different colors, variations, size variations to dial in the different hatches in your areas, or just play around with different variables and have a little fun at the vise. So hopefully this will give you some tips on your soft tackles. We'll do another one or two, maybe three over the next couple tutorials, and we'll see you next time. Get out there on the water and catch some fish.